Greetings, Earth. Welcome to the Nostalgiaverse.
Hello and welcome. As always, I'm your host, Katt, and today here with me is Alex.
Hello.
This episode is a fun one for us and hopefully for you as well. Our guest today has done voice, screen, and stage work over the course of his career, probably best known to our listeners as the voice of Zartan on G.I. Joe. Please welcome Zach Hoffman.
How you doing, everybody? It's good to be here.
Yay! You have done a lot with Joe, but you've also done some other stuff too. I mean, you were director on Pee-wee's Big Adventure, for example.
That was the character. The director was actually Tim Burton, but yes, I played the director. Yeah, Pee-wee's Big Adventure always was a couple of days for me, and I got to see and I can't think of the name of it, but it's the thing where he wakes in the morning. It's spectacular. And it was just a great movie to be part of. It was the number 3 gross fee of 1987. Nice to be part of that.
Yeah, and I remember watching it. It was like, this is crazy and fun.
Very talented man, Mr. Rubin.
Yeah. You were in an episode of Highway to Heaven.
Yes, I was. The late, great Michael Landon.
Yes. Oh, miss him. An episode of The Fugitive in 2000.
Which they shot here in lovely Seattle.
Which is really cool. Yeah.
Hey, isn't that guy still here? That Zach Hoffman guy. He's still here, isn't he? Yeah, bring him out.
Right. You did a short called The Mix-Up in 2007. You were in Untraceable as a chief of police in that one.
Yes, I was. It was very good. And that was shot in Oregon, in Portland, Oregon. Good little movie they made.
Yeah. And then Homeland.
It's a movie called Homeland about a returning vet. And I play an unscrupulous developer.
Oh, my.
Yes. Always nice to be the bad guy.
Good guys get all the best lines.
Yeah.
You've done a lot with Zartan. Aside from that, there was the G.I. Joe movie, G.I. Joe TV series, Revenge of Cobra, Arise Serpentor Arise.
You know, the Joe series was 3 years, 82 to 85. It was a lot of fun. It was very much like doing a radio show. And there was just a wall of microphones up there in the studio, and good guys on one side, bad guys on the other. Have multiple takes doing either Yo Joe or Cobra. It was a great atmosphere. We had a lot of fun doing it. And it's the work. You show up, you do your work, you have a good time doing it. And hopefully that translates to the screen. And there's a lot of elements between our voice and the people who wrote the show, and then it goes to Japan and gets animated, comes back for the fine tuning. It was really the reverse of a lot of the stuff that I was doing. At the time, I was looping a lot of different things from different countries, usually from Japan. A lot of stuff looping from Japan. I got to work on Fanny and Alexander with Rudy. It was a mini series in Sweden, 9 hours long.
Wow.
So they brought the cast together on the lot. I think at Warner Brothers, I'm not sure. It was either on the lot at Warner Brothers or Paramount. So here's this room, this screening room. There's like 34 actors, and we're watching the film in Swedish without subtitles.
Oh, my.
And they'd show like a 45 minutes of it. The Swedish interpreter would talk about the movie, and then they'd show another 45. It was a great day. And then the looping began. It was really great. It was really great. First of all, to see the whole thing uncut. I think they cut it to about 3.5 hours for the theatrical. It was like 3.5 with an intermission. It was a great story. It was really a wonderful work by Ingmar Bergman. Just to be able to say, I did some voices for Ingmar Bergman. Awesome.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was good.
What are some of your favorite stories in the voice booth that you can remember working on G.I. Joe or any other projects that you've done?
That's a hard question. I just so vividly remember Wally Burr, who was the director. So there were fight scenes. So he'd get people up there and he'd go, all right, take a punch to the face. No. And now one to the stomach. Ooh. and then one to the head. Oh, and then punch 2 times. And then so just, it's that thing of you're a kid and you play, and then be like, okay, well, you're going to get a paycheck, and well, what am I going to do? You're just going to play in front of the microphone. And it's like, really?
Yeah.
Really? Can't really?
We've heard that from a number of voice actors, that it's like, I get paid to stand in front of a microphone and play. It's the best job in the world.
It's really good. It's really good.
Some people refer to Wally Burr as the train. Do it again, do it again, do it again, do it again.
Well, I just love Wally, and a lot of people know the story about they weren't happy with the voice for Zartan. They just couldn't find this voice for Zartan. I walked into Michelli's restaurant, and sitting at the bar were, I think, Wally and Richard Drago, and I sat down, and I was working with the LA Connection, so must have been, we were doing improvision. So it was Friday night, and what improvision was, we take an old movie, and then we'd loop in to our own dialogue for the movie. And we did Brainiac, and we did Bride of the Monster, which was a Ed Wood's film. And in Bride of the Monster, we decided that it would be better as a James Bond movie.
Oh my gosh.
It's really good. And so I played James Bond. So I was doing my best Sean Connery. And so I was at the bar telling Molly that I was doing my best Sean Connery. And through the whole thing, Bond, James Bond. So we're talking, and he's just like, he's looking at me, and he goes, we're looking for a voice. I said, yeah, okay. He says, all right. So he says, here's the guy. And he explains who Zartan was and his abilities. And he was the leader of the Dreadnoks. And I went home and I pulled out my copy of Clockwork Orange because he struck me as Alex, who was and I can't think of the name of his boys right now, but he had his gang sort of took Sean Connery and Alex from Clockwork Orange and melded them, and it became Zartan.
That is awesome.
Well, Zartan's this and Zartan's and whatever. Zartan's whatever you want. So when I go to these conventions, it's really great, and I'm amazed. And they're like so happy to see me. And one guy goes, "You don't get it, do you?" And I said, "No, I don't get it." And he said, "When I was playing with that toy, yeah, you were the voice. That was the voice of my toy." So dads in their 40s and 50s have passed on that DVD stuff sat and watched this stuff with their kids and laughed. I had a lot of fun in the booth. And what I'm sad about is that Chris Latta just isn't around to get the accolades that he so deserves for that fabulous Cobra Commander, because Cobra Commander was the glue that kept everything together.
Yeah.
He did such a great job of and having all those meltdowns every show. He would melt. I've got you, G.I. Joe. I've got you. And then he'd have some sort of complete breakdown by the end. And just watching him do that, it was just spectacular. Those were good memories. Those were good times. This was a good guy. Funny stand-up, too.
And, of course, in comic books, there's been a lot of crossovers between G.I. Joe and Transformers, but there's only actually been one on screen. And that was an original episode of Transformers where Cobra Commander showed up in season 3. And that was it.
No, there's another G.I. Joe that actually showed up in season 3.
Oh, really?
Flint.
Oh, right.
Flint showed up, and actually it wasn't really Flint, but it was the daughter of, the father of, forgot her name. You know what I'm talking about. Alyssa Fairborn, yeah. So,
yeah.
The only two characters that actually showed up.
A lot of fans have wanted a Transformers G.I. Joe crossover on screen. I would love to get as many of the old cast back together to do that from both shows.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. Can you imagine Zartan's reaction to meeting Transformers?
It's like, I can't, actually. No. Well, thank goodness I have I can become invisible.
There you go.
There you go. That would be, whew, I'm off the hook.
Yeah. 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 That would be it. Cobra Commander is like, from the cartoons, hysterically funny in the way Chris voiced. And I don't think anybody has been able to quite duplicate that. Although one guy did come close. That was Scott McNeil when he took over right after Chris died. And he said that doing that voice, a throat destroyer.
Right.
He doesn't know how Chris was able to do it for so long.
I know. Yeah.
It tells you how good he really was.
Yeah, he was amazing. He was amazing.
On the subject of some of your other work, tell us about your stage work, since you can't really look that up on IMDb.
Okay. Did improv comedy. We would play couples in LA. We had a group called the RTD Conspiracy, and we would play Helen's Place, which was a punk rock bar down on Vermont in LA. It was awesome.
Wow.
We would have like the UCLA Brooks Brothers with the khakis and the blue shirts. We'd have that crowd, punk rockers, coming to an improv show, having them yell out suggestions for our show. And it was just a gas. We do a late show Friday and Saturday night at the Laugh Factory, which is on Sunset and Heights. There were 8 of us, and 5 guys and 3 women. One of the women was Lydia Grabber. Lydia was one of the Ewoks in Star Wars. It's wonderful when you have a little person because they can part the Red Sea. And the corner of Sunset and Crescent Heights in Los Angeles at 10:30 at night on a Friday or Saturday night was Hookerville. We would have to part the sea of hookers to get across the street to go do a show. They loved Lydia. See ya, It was fun. It was fun. We'd go in and do our show at the Laugh Factory. It was good times. Love those people.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, early 90s, they were doing a series on TV that was filmed at the Laugh Factory of guys getting up doing stand-up.
Right.
There's a lot of comedians that got their start there.
Oh, yes.
Doing that, one of whom is a now very well-known ventriloquist, Jeff Dunham.
Wow.
He was on that show. And I remember watching him thought he was hysterically funny. And he's got several DVDs out now and tours all over the U.S.
I love him. I didn't know he started last. I love him. I think he's hilarious. His puppets are just wonderful. I mean, evolution in ventriloquism. The old guy, and I can't think of his name, the
Walter.
grumpy old man, Walter. Oh my God, very good. And then he has an alien, and he has just great characters.
Yeah,
good character work.
Peanut and all of those. I think it was Evening at the Improv. I think was what it was called, but I don't remember. But it was filmed at the Laugh Factory. He had Nut and Peanut's ventriloquist dummy of Jeff, Jose Jalapeno on a stick, and the Tequila Worm. And he was doing himself, Peanut, the dummy, Jose Jalapeno, and the Tequila Worm all together. All of those voices, I was like, oh my God. And he was doing his thing, and the audience was laughing, and then Peanut goes, that's cute, just wait, one day his tongue's going to get a hernia, and they just died. I know I did. And that was the first time I ever saw him. So yeah, a lot of comedians have their start on there. It's great. And is it still running? Is
Absolutely.
The Laugh Factory still
Absolutely.
awesome?
Still a cornerstone of Sunset Street. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is great to hear. What are some of the that you've done
on
stage?
So I'll just say that I did a lot of improvisational theater, and then occasionally you do a stage show, you slide in, you do a stage show, you do a character, you come out. I moved to Seattle, and I connected with a mystery group, a group that does those mysteries.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that with them. I love improvisational theater. And I had a chance when I moved to Seattle to do Tony and Tina's Wedding in Seattle. Are you familiar with the show at all?
I've heard of it.
Okay.
I've never seen it.
It's these 2 very dysfunctional Italian families, and the daughter are getting married, and you bring this dysfunctional family together, and there are 30 actors So you have this wedding, and you go to a church. There's a wedding in a church, and then you go to this. I don't know. I guess the reception. We had
Reception hall,
the
yeah.
reception. Vinny's buffet of love. That's what it was called. And the dysfunction starts to edge up. It's sort of the wedding, sort of is the suck to get you in, and you're not sure if this is real or not. And then the dysfunction just starts to escalate until it's a major chaotic mess. And it is absolutely hysterical. It's 3.5 hours. So it's like being the Bruce Springsteen of improv, where you're in character for 3.5 hours. There's no break. There's no break. You're eating dinner in character. It's quite amazing. This was a great production of it. The one in Seattle was produced Cloud9 Productions, which is Ron Paskin. This was just a spectacular production of it. Gosh, we had a good time. It ran for 1.5 years. Now, I've done a lot of plays in my life. It's always 6 weeks, 2 months, 1.5 years. Unbelievable that a production would run that long. And it did.
That's touring companies, not stationary productions.
Exactly. One of those things that just think then it's never going to end. Once you hit the 6-month mark, it's never. Everything in show business comes to an end.
From the sound of it, I think part of what allowed it to go so long is because it was improv. So every night it could be completely different.
And you could go numerous times, and if you sit with the bride's family, and then you would sit with the groom's family, you would have a completely different experience.
Right.
The show is the show is the show. Certain things will happen, period, every night. But depending on the conversations you get into with the different characters, if you're on the left side of the room or the right side of the room, really, it was terrific.
Sort of like one of those choose your own adventure novels. Only it's a play.
Only it's a play. People are live interacting with you. Yeah, it was really great. I had a friend from LA who was my old roommate in Dale, and she came out to Seattle, and I said, come and see the show, and she said, fantastic. And so you're about 80% in, but there's 20% where you're monitoring what's going on around you. So at one point, Dolores just completely disappeared for about 40 minutes. She was like gone. And I was like, there's nothing you can do about it. I'm not going to stop. But you just make that mental note. Toward the end, I saw her again. Boom. There she was. After the show, we went and got coffee or whatever. We're sitting there and we're talking. And I said, so what happened? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, you disappeared you were gone for like, I don't know, a half hour. She said, yeah. I said, well, what happened? She said, well, it got too real for me. I started to relive an embarrassing event that happened to me at an Italian wedding. And I had to walk out and go across the street and go get a cup of coffee at Starbucks and calm out before I could go back in again.
Oh, my
too real.
goodness. Oh, wow.
That's
yeah.
Bring that out.
Yeah. One of the things that I've always felt to be true, and found that other people feel this way too, is the best actors disappear and all you see is the character.
Right. Yeah.
And when you can do that, you're doing good.
I spent the last 10 years, I did a show called Tuxedo Man. And it's a story about a guy named Nick Sands who, as my director says, he's 3 scotches past his prime. And he gets another shot to 10 audiences, which he's been doing. And it's the question of, is the performer alive when he's on stage, or is he alive when he's off stage? Where does he live? Does he live on stage or does he live off stage? And it's a great question. It's one of these guys, and we did it 3-dimensionally where the stage rotates and you get to see him on stage, off stage, on stage, off stage. It's, so yeah, but those nights where I give the last line, you hear the applause, and then you think to yourself, what happened? That's it. It's a ride. It's a ride for you, and it's a ride for the audience. And if the more you fully immerse in the character, the more you can bring your audience along with you. I got one more story of Tony and Tina's wedding. Many years ago, when I was learning acting, I was learning from a woman by the name of Estelle Harmon, who ran the Actors Workshop in Los Angeles. One night, Estelle talked about doing things like sense memory. She was doing, and she went through taking one drink and then taking 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And it was brilliant what the progression is of the alcohol and all that stuff. That was a great class, and took it in. And you just sort of put that away and you go, well, I'll have to use that. And then some 20 years later, I'm doing Tony and Tina's wedding, and they tell me, well, the priest gets drunk. The priest gets drunk, and got to do the Estelle Harmon sense memory technique, 1 drink to 7. And of course, we're not drinking. I was just having a ball.
That sounds like fun. It's always fun to be able to pull different things into what you get to do on stage or behind a microphone or even on screen. And it's great fun to watch. From the other side of that is seeing, I know for me, seeing what an actor is capable of, as well as the story and the development of these characters that you guys get to play, for me, I think, is much fun as watching the stories, because when an actor truly gets to challenge themselves and they're not pigeonholed into just 1 or 2 types of roles, but they actually branch out and do drastically different roles, I think that, for me, allows me, from an audience perspective, to get to see just how versatile a actor is.
2 actors come to mind for me immediately. One is Anne Hathaway. Who
yes,
is unrecognizable in some of the roles she does. And then Jeremy Renner.
He was in Born Legacy.
The Born Legacy, yes, wonderful. He's unrecognizable from one role to the other role.
Yeah.
It's just, he's a great actor, really.
Yes, he is. Another one that comes to mind for me is Val Kilmer. Top Gun. There was a spy spoof movie, I can't remember the name of.
Right.
To The Saint, to all these different roles that he's done. He was the voice of Kit in the 2008 Knight Rider series. And you wouldn't know it was him. It's like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, he's another one of those that's like that. He was in the movie The Doors as Jim Morrison.
Right.
And you would not recognize it as him.
No, he was excellent in The Doors. He was, unfortunately, that movie suffered from, it suffered.
Yeah.
They invented music television. They invented music videos, The Doors, and they don't get enough credit for that.
And you get actors like that can just completely disappear into the character. For Val Kilmer, the Saint was a perfect example of that, because not only was he playing the Saint, this character, but the Saint himself was playing all these other characters.
That's right.
It was literally a double disguise there, a double role, essentially.
That's right.
For him, and he was so good in that. And
I like Roger Moore too.
Yes, Roger Moore was, yes. And when an actor can completely disappear into a role, and you see the character, that's when you know, yeah, this guy's good. This guy is really good. Yeah. The problem with that is because the actor is to be seen, and all you see is the character, people forget about the actor.
Which is great.
As much. The problem for me is that they don't get as much recognition as they really should. Because you see the character and you forget who the actor is. And it's like, oh yeah, there was that one guy. I don't know who he was, but it's a great character. And it's like, no, that was this guy. Oh, really? They don't get enough recognition and awards for it. It's kind of a side effect of that. I've noticed. At least Val Kilmer doesn't. And
but trust me, it's not about the awards.
Oh,
it's seriously, it's about the work. And when all is said and done, whoever this guy's going to know, he did the work. He showed, and he did the work, and that's all you can ask for.
And he did a great job with it too.
Yeah, and there are people that have made their bones Broadway character actors for years and years and years and years. And they go from show to show to show. And they're not going to set the world. Occasionally, like these guys are honored last year. I'm listening to Hamilton, the soundtrack of Hamilton. So every 20 years, Broadway blows my mind. Just completely blows my mind. Like Rent, which was a generation's West Side Story, basically.
Yeah.
And now Hamilton has learned how to incorporate hip hop into Broadway and bring youth back into the seats. Man, that's where it's at.
One of the things that I like to see, I would personally love to be able to see in the theater, is taking what everybody knows as, okay, this play is this. Not only seeing brand new plays that nobody's ever seen before, but taking older plays and doing them in a different way and making them fresh and new.
When I first moved to Seattle, I saw Midsummer's Night Dream done as Grease in a high school gym. The fairies were cheerleaders. It was pretty fantastic.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty fantastic. And they did, and I'm trying to think of the name of it, but it was called The Donkey Show. And it is I know it sounds crazy, but The Donkey Show was a interactive version of a Shakespearean play, and people were on roller skates. It was wild.
Wow.
It was done in New York. Check that out. I have not.
Yeah. That sounds like it'd be a hoot. I remember, and I actually have on DVD, there was a version of Midsummer Night's Dream done almost, it was kind of a little bit more modern because you had bicycles and phonographs and stuff. Michelle Pfeiffer was in it. It was done in kind of that style, but the dialogue wasn't changed, and it was funny. It was so funny. It's probably one of my favorite plays. Going into other stuff that I've heard about that I would love to see done, Patrick Stewart actually had an idea because he always wanted to be an Othello. And he wanted to play Othello. Well, in modern day, doing blackface is kind of become a no-no. Well, you're right. And he had the idea of, well, what if we switch it? In Othello, there's only like, 2 or 3 roles that are black. All the rest of them are white.
Right.
Reverse it. Suddenly, all these brilliant, wonderful roles open up for black actors. And he ended up playing Othello as a white Othello. He did this in D.C. a few years ago. It was well received.
I would love to have seen that. That's
oh my
brilliant.
God. Yes, and I would love to see him be able to do that, like in the UK, and because I think he was talking about trying to see if he could get it done in the UK, because he was pitching it around and nobody wanted to do it, nobody wanted to touch it, and then this guy from DC is like, yeah, we'll do it in DC. It's like okay, and it was brilliantly done. They did not change a word of dialogue at all.
No, that's
all the
same.
It's just they just switched. Yeah, they just switched the roles. And I would love to see that go on tour and just go around the country and here and in the UK. Let other people be able to see this because the idea just sounds absolutely brilliant to me. I would have loved to have seen that, but I live on the other side of the country. And it's things like that. I would love to see stuff like that on stage and on screen, taking the story that we all know, and turning it upside down and giving a totally new version of it. Well,
you should talk to Arthur Burkhart because he's a Shakespearean actor.
Mm-hmm.
That's his training.
Mm-hmm.
When I studied like the worst Shakespearean actor of all time. But I think doing Shakespeare makes Neil Simon so much nicer. Once you've studied Shakespeare and then you go, hey, would you do The Odd Couple? You go, oh, yeah, sure, easy. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
That I saw that's actually on DVD is Hamlet with David Tennant in the title role. And it was more modern take on the whole story. It's kind of a more modern version of it. And that's actually on DVD.
Who's the guy that did Dollhouse, that television show? Bad Robot.
Isn't that JJ?
JJ Abrams. He just did a modern day Shakespearean play. Comedy. Takes place in a house. They're doing the words and.
Was that Much Ado About Nothing?
Yes.
Yeah. If I remember correctly, John Barrowman was in that. If anybody doesn't know who he was in Doctor Who as Captain Jack Harkness.
Yes. Love Captain Jack.
Yes. Yeah, he was in that. I think it was on Netflix for a while.
Well done.
Yeah. I love seeing different take on different things.
Yeah. Richard III done as Nazi Germany with
Oh, God.
who's Gandorf, Ian McClellan.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Ian McKellen, yeah. I would love to see that. So, what have you got coming up, project-wise, either
Well, let's
behind
see.
a mic, on stage, or on screen?
Actually, I'm doing a personal appearance with 5 of the G.I. Joe people in September 17th and 18th at the Long Beach Comic-Con. So it's the first time 5 of the major villains have been together at one time, which is Morgan Lofting, who did The Baroness, and Arthur Burkhart, who did Destro, myself, Zartan, Michael Bell, who was Major Blood, and Barbecue, Lauren Lester. A lot of Joe's going to be there. It's going to be fun. That's coming up. I'm working on a couple of projects. Tuxedo Man is always in motion. I don't have any performances scheduled right now. So I live and work in Seattle. So I do some industrials here and commercial voiceovers, and this is where it is. This is where it's at.
And Seattle and Tacoma both have quite a theater history. There's quite a few theaters in both towns. Question that has been on a lot of people's mind.
Okay. I'm ready for it.
The type of mint, candy mint or breath mint for Zartan's.
I've never got this, but now it's had explained to me. And I will just give you my personal preference because, well, I'm Zartan. So I'm Zartan. Like Mentos, I think, and those I guess qualify as candy mints. But I like the Mentos. I'll go with the Mentos, and the Tic Tacs. No, they don't have any goodness to them. They're just
no substance. It's
they're just
tiny
there.
little thing.
Yeah, and hopefully they have those strips, right? Yeah. Today they have those little green strips. So you put it on your tongue, and you're minty fresh and good to go. But there's nothing like a good Mentos. Nothing like it. So Zartan says, kids, go get some Mentos.
That's awesome. Alex, you got anything else you want to throw his way before we sign off?
No.
You're good? Okay, dokie.
I hate to say goodbye. I have tickets to Jackson Brown tonight, which I'm speaking of music, so I'm totally jazzed about that.
Yeah. Do let me know when you have show dates for Tuxedo Man.
I will. Thank you very much.
Love to see that.
Very good.
I'd love to see it. To all of you listening, thank you so much for being there.
And thank you, both of you. It was a lot of fun for having me on your show.
Love having you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Breath mint! Oh, candy mint! Breath mint! Oh, candy mint! Breath mint! Candy mint!
It appears, Commander, they're engaged in weighty philosophical debate.